These are the images Boris Johnson wanted voters to see on the last day of campaigning. A Prime Minister turned milkman, out dutifully delivering to the public.
Really, thank you very much. I'm so kind of you.
Morning, Prime Minister. Will you come on Good Morning Britain, Prime Minister?
But shortly before that, Johnson and his team were not so composed.
I just had a reaction here from one of the minders. Prime Minister, will you come on Good Morning Britain and deliver on your promise to talk to Piers and Susanna?
Johnson was caught off guard by a crew from ITV's Good Morning Britain, and he then took refuge from reporters in a freezer.
Into the fan so far, isn't it?
That was heroic work.
But equally as staged was Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn's final hours on the campaign trail. Corbyn jumped at the chance to take a swipe at his main political rival.
And I just let you know this, I've not come here to deliver milk or to hide in a fridge. I've come here with a message of hope.
Corbyn will be hoping his message hits home. So far, polls have not been looking good for Labour, with most betting on a Conservative majority. But bookies have seen a shift in recent days, and Corbyn is at much better odds of becoming Prime Minister. However, there are no clear favourites among the voters.
If I'm honest with you, there is no choice. I don't like either of the main candidates, so I'm struggling.
None of them tell the truth. They just don't tell the truth. They're just out for themselves. They're not out for us. They're out for themselves. So I will vote, but I still haven't made my mind up who yet.
This is largely a one-issue election. Still, some are trying to focus on other important topics. This latest mural by renowned street artist Banksy highlights the issue of homelessness at Christmas time. For many of the poorest people in the UK, Brexit is the least of their concerns.
Well, polls just opened in London about an hour ago, and our correspondent Birgit Maas is covering it all. Birgit, Brexit has created a highly divisive atmosphere in British politics. Is that being reflected in the election campaigns?
Well, yes. I mean, it's really an atmosphere of polarization. Just minutes before we came on air, there was a young woman walking past. She was on the phone with her friend and she said, I'm walking past the polling station, but I'm not voting. They're all liars. I've spoken to people who have voted Labour for all their life, who were livid about Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the Labour Party, and his Brexit strategy, and they said they could not bring themselves to vote Labour in this election. I've spoken to former Conservative MPs in Parliament who described Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, as a charlatan and a liar. So this really feeds through this whole atmosphere and through the whole last weeks of the election campaign. Polarisation is a big issue here in the UK.
Now, the polls have shown that the gap between the two parties has been narrowing in the run-up to the election. Do we have any idea of how the country will vote today?
Well, for a long time, it really looked like it would be a Conservative majority. However, this gap has narrowed of late, so we are not quite so sure whether Boris Johnson will get the majority that he so desperately wants in Parliament. It could also be a hung Parliament, which would mean that most likely in this case, Jeremy Corbyn could also form a government, and he could be propped up by smaller parties. So at the moment we are not sure. We do know that it looks more likely that Boris Johnson will also be the next Prime Minister, but we don't know yet in what form exactly the next Parliament will have.
OK, well, what's going to happen after this election, Birgit? I mean, there are a couple of obvious scenarios, possibilities. Where will things go from here, particularly with Brexit?
Well, if we do have Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister, he said that he wants to hold another referendum on the whole Brexit issue. That would be the most likely thing to happen under a Corbyn government. If Boris Johnson wins, he has maintained, and this was his mantra, that was quite simple and easy with the voters. He said he's going to get Brexit done, so he's promising by the end of next January to lead the UK out of the European Union. However, after that, he does face the arduous task to negotiate again with the European Union, this time not about the withdrawal, about the exit, but about the future path. So what kind of relationship, what kind of trade agreement is the UK going to have with the European Union? Boris Johnson says he's going to get it all done in a matter of months. However, there are many experts, many critics here who are saying, well, this is more likely taking years. So it's not unlikely that this whole Brexit debate is going to continue haunting this country.
Birgit, thank you very much. DW's Birgit Maas there in London. Well, for more now, let's bring in our UK politics expert, Alex Forrest-Whiting. Good morning, Alex. So, Election day is here. How's it looking for the main parties?
Well, as we have just heard, the polls have been narrowing. Throughout this campaign, the Conservative Party under Boris Johnson have had a lead of around about 10 points. And they are, it appears, still on course to win the election, with lots of caveats thrown in there. The latest poll put them with a majority of around about 28 seats. So a party needs 326 seats to make government, to be in a majority. However, there are so many issues here at stake for them, and there's the issue of it being December, it being cold. Will people turn out and vote? And also the other issue of tactical voting, which is where people may decide, look, in my particular constituency, in this seat, it could be that we can get a certain MP candidate out, say a Conservative candidate out, by voting for another party, and that's what they may do. So that is why, at the moment, there is still the possibility for it to be a hung parliament.
Exciting. This election was triggered, of course, by the government's failure to decide the Brexit issue. What have the parties been telling voters about their plans to get this issue settled once and for all?
Well, we saw there with Boris Johnson in that report that his one message has been get Brexit done. And everything that the Conservatives have gone out and done, particularly with Boris Johnson, has had those three words on their campaign, whether he's driving a digger with those words on, whether he's baking a pie with it across his apron.
Petting a rabbit, pulling fish.
Exactly. Everything is get Brexit done, because that is what they think will get through and is getting through, particularly to voters who would normally perhaps vote for the opposition party, the Labour Party, because the feeling is that many people are sick of Brexit and they want to get it done. So that is what they want to do. They're under pressure from the Brexit Party to get Brexit done. Then we can look at the opposition party, the Liberal Democrats, saying, no, we want to revoke Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty. That means we want to reverse this whole thing. We want to go back to the beginning, forget Brexit ever happened. And then the Labour Party, now that's the most interesting. They have had a huge amount of a torturous debate over what do they want to do with Brexit. Finally, they have decided that they would like to renegotiate a new deal with Brussels and then put it to a vote to the people, so a second referendum to the people to decide, with Jeremy Corbyn, the leader, saying that he will not come down on either side, leaving it completely open, because many believe that he himself is actually pro-Brexit.
OK, that, of course, is contingent on the EU being willing to negotiate again. If Johnson's Conservatives do win, as the polls right now suggest, what will happen next?
Well, he will do what he's been promising, which is to get Brexit done. So he's expected to bring his deal, his withdrawal agreement, back to Parliament even before Christmas, to try to get that through Parliament, with the aim of getting the UK out of the EU by the 31st of January. Now, that was the latest deadline that Brussels gave the UK. If that then happens, it's not all over, as many people are saying. The Conservatives are saying that's it. Of course, it isn't. The UK then has to agree a future trade deal with the EU. Boris Johnson says that can be done by the end of next year. Most experts are saying it absolutely cannot be done.
So either way, Brexit isn't over yet.
I'm afraid not.
Alex Forrest-Whiting, thank you so much for filling us in.